This is the Roundtable Talk Podcast, brought to you in part by Rayford Guns, the Hoke County edition of the North State Journal, the Libra Initiative of North Carolina, and our flagship station, WCLN Christian 105.7. And now here are your hosts, Ruben Castellon and Chris Holland.
All right. This is episode 151, and I'm Ruben Castellon.
And Chris Holland.
And today we have with us a special guest, Dr. Ralph Carter. We sort of had some technical difficulties last time, so we offered him to come back. And, of course, we also invited Mr. Kirk Lowry. He may or may not show up. He said he was going to try it, so we'll see what happens. We'll play by ear if he decides to show up at the last moment. But in any case...
so early voting is winding down. You know, this is Thursday of the last week. It ends Saturday at 3 p.m. So if you intend to early vote, get out there right now. Polls are open during the weekday till 6:30. And like I said, at 3 p.m. on Saturday, they close down, and then they'll reconstitute everything. And Election Day is next Tuesday, March 3rd. All right.
I tell you what, before we give the mic to Dr. Carter, I have to say, I haven't been disappointed in such a long time. I went to vote a few days ago, and it was myself, my wife, and my son. And the total number on the Rockfish Park polling side was 521.
Yeah, so it's just a little over 500 Republicans. Now, you're talking about 521 at Rockfish. That's total voters, of whatever party. But it is disappointing. I think the Democrats are up to about 1,900, turnout. We're about a little over 500. So, it is disappointing in that you see people all the time talking, social media particularly, about, the issues and this and that, and they need change. But then you're given the opportunity to make a change, and you sit at home. So historically, Republicans come out and vote on Election Day.
Well,
so I think there'll be a stronger turnout on March 3rd. However, last election cycle, statewide, the Republicans beat the Democrats on early turnout voting. So, that's not being replicated this year. I don't know if it's a sign of the times, and it's an off presidential cycle election, so it's always the turnout's a little bit lower anyway. People just don't have the interest in their local, even though they gripe about it all the time, they don't have the same interest level as they do in the presidential cycle. But, hey, you've still got, 2 days, today and tomorrow, and then Saturday, 2.5 days, I guess, to finish up early voting. And then if you miss out on early voting, March 3rd, don't sit around and talk about how things need to change and how things are bad and you could see something better and then sit at the house and not make a difference.
And this is the thing. This is why people get involved. I'll give you an example. Now, I'm just talking about Dr. Carter here right now. I mean, this is why he's decided to run, because he wants to change. When I ran for a school board, I wanted change. And, of course, I'm only one vote, but, I didn't just vote. I went a step further. You're talking about not just voting, So, anyways, Dr. Carter, go ahead and tell us why you run and give us a little bit of history about how'd you got here.
Glad to do that. I'll make a little comment, though, about the ballots in Hoke County. 4 out of 5 unaffiliated voters are voting in the Democrat primary. Correct. So that big pool of unaffiliated voting are voting largely Democrat. So our district is a poor district, Hoke and Scotland County. It's pretty obvious that we have a fairly ineffective representative, and quite frankly, because the red team, the Republicans, control the action in Raleigh, we don't get much our way. And if we change that to a red representative, we're going to do better. There's just no question about it in terms of getting infrastructure dollars, for water, roads, schools, all that kind of stuff. I will say, though, that the motivating factor, the thing that really pushed me to do this, is all the medical stuff. What we've seen as we went through the COVID debacle, and the light it shed on all the inadequacies of the American healthcare system, including here, including North Carolina. And so that's a motivating factor as well. So I like to think I can walk and chew gum. I can go up there and get the needed infrastructure dollars, open that spigot, literally here, open the spigot for water, but especially in Hoke County, but also be a leader in change on the health front. I was chairman of the Board of Health in Scotland County for a year. I was on that board for several years. I was basically removed by a Democrat. So it's a long story, but I would like to be involved in leadership on those issues.
Yeah. So, I know I've been keeping kind of tabs, but tell us about the excitement in Scotland County. Scotland County is the second cycle now that they've been a red county. Wasn't it 2020 when they actually got a majority Republican in their leadership and elected President Trump?
I think that's when we first voted for a Republican congressman and for a Republican presidential candidate. That happened again in 24. But 12 years ago, we elected the first Republican in Scotland County, and that was a sheriff. So right now, that sheriff done his time. He's retired. He's got excellent law enforcement officers running for his job, and they're all running, all but one. The guy that's running as a Democrat, frankly, doesn't have a primary. He's a pretty good law enforcement officer as well. But the excitement down there is in the Republican primary. So what's happening down there is the opposite of what's happening in Hope. 3 out of 4 unaffiliated voters are voting in the Republican primary.
Okay,
and the turnout's higher.
I was going to say the turnout.
Well,
you see a lot.
let me tell you
overall
something.
The turnout's higher.
Let me tell you something, okay? And I'm gonna tell you why this is going on, okay? I've been here since 1996, and you take it for what it's worth. Those of you that supposedly were born here in Hoke County or raised in Hoke County, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There used to be a time when we had a lot of Democrats, and I'm just going to call it for what it is, white Democrats. Then black Americans began to take over, which they are right now, basically. And so I've been told by many reliable sources that these Democrats, they used to be conservative at one time. They became unaffiliated because they did not want to be affiliated with the black Democrats, which, by the way, many of them are very conservative too. And so that's why these unaffiliated in Hoke County, that's why they continue to vote, in most cases, Democrat, because they are really Democrats, but it's kind of like to spike you. I'm not going to be this because of this.
I'm not going to belong to your party, but I'll vote for you anyway.
That's right.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm like I said, I've been here since 1996, and I've always been told, because I know many people that used to be Democrats that are now affiliates, and they have a distaste to be Democrats with the ones in power right now.
Well, I know, and I've talked to a lot of black residents here in Hoke County as well, and they say basically that the corruption's been here since the beginning. Mm-hmm. It was the white Democrats, the black Democrats, whatever, but they have an affiliation and a desire to keep the black Democrats in charge.
Yeah,
and they, regardless of that's the excuse. They did it, so we're doing it, and we're going to keep on. We're going to keep voting so that they're in charge, which is kind of sad. We as residents should expect more from our leadership, regardless of party. We should look at the character of the individual. We should look at their priorities. We should look at what they do and bring to the community, not, your party or your race. It should be the basis of the character of the individual.
That's right.
Well, it's interesting to note that our Scotland County, where I live, is older, and it's about 40%, 45% white, maybe 40% black, and about the rest of it is Lumbee. We don't have many Hispanics, Asians, and whatnot.
Right.
In Hoke County, it's a younger population, a lot more active duty, a lot more military connected, and it's close to 20% Hispanic. It's the flavor in the two counties is quite different. But up here, the Republicans, and look, the parties are totally imperfect. It's just, I can't imagine anybody that adheres to Christian family values. It's hard to be a Democrat if you adhere to those values anymore, especially nationally. It's quite an interesting picture, but up here, there's no Republican that's broken through. You haven't elected that Republican sheriff or whatever, so you're still stuck in that morass of continuing to elect Democrats. And what development you've gotten here, in my opinion, is largely due to the fact that Fort Bragg has expanded, and that's helped you have some development.
That's definitely increased our population.
Exactly.
And that everything, and that's the thing, that we've talked about for years and years is, a smart build plan is to build that infrastructure out, develop those capabilities and the infrastructure to support a larger population, and then bring a living space for that population. We've done it exactly backwards here in Hoke County. We built all these subdivisions. Now we figure out that, we don't have enough wells. We don't have the water pressure. We don't have the sanitation, the recycle of the water. And plus, I've been reading that, our police force, our sheriff's department, the sheriffs want more deputies, and it's one of those things where it's not front page news all the time, but the crime rate here in Hoke County has really exploded, whether it's, assaults, drugs, all kinds of stuff that are going on. And it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
That's
the
right.
sheriff, has talked about cars and equipment and stuff like this, the medic program, first in the state, and it might be first in the nation, I don't know. But, having EMT qualified sheriff deputies as first responders, that's a great initiative. However, if we don't have enough manpower to cover a shift, then it's all for naught, And there again, it goes back to the taxes. The commissioners are always talking about, oh, it's great, we never raise taxes. Well, you don't have to raise taxes when your property values go up 25 or 30%, right? You're still paying 30% more at the same tax rate. But it's a hard reckoning. I think that eventually we're going to get to the point, and Republicans don't like to say it, but I'll tell you, we're going to have to get to a point where we're going to have to raise taxes to develop that infrastructure, because Raleigh can only provide so much.
That's right.
They'll only give us so many dollars. We're going to have to start supporting ourselves. I hear commissioners all the time bragging about how we get grants and we get, all this free money. Well, at the end of the day, the government doesn't make money. They don't give free money. They give somebody
money.
else's money to you, So I see it personally as an affront to the citizens that we can't support ourselves, that we have to take grants, Now, because what we're doing is we're taking somebody else's money and putting it to our own benefit. Now, as a collective society, that's kind of the way things work. However, I think that Hoke County has an obligation to become more self-sufficient and be able to support ourselves and wean ourselves off of the grants. It's a fine day when you can stand up there and go, we just developed this project, we just implemented this, system or whatever, and we paid for it. Not that the state paid for it. Somebody else paid for it for us.
So, Dr. Carter, if you had to give us your high 3 to 5 different areas that you want to really push to let your audience know? What will those be?
Well, the first one, we can call it affordability, or we could call it prosperity, and that gets back to orderly development, the onshoring of jobs back to our country. We need to get our share of that. So, and then control of expenses, and that's first of all. Well, one thing is utilities. We don't need to be paying additional utility bills because somebody wants to put a server farm here that could potentially raise the rates. The companies that are bringing those things in need to pay their own way and not have utility bills spike. But right now, the legislature is looking hard at property taxes, about trying to do something to cap the increases in property taxes that we've been alluding to here. I would like to see that done in an aggressive manner. I would like to see our communities be less dependent on property taxes, but it's the way it's always been done. Counties live off of property taxes and whatever handouts they can get from the state. Well, the fairest tax is a sales tax, a consumption tax. If you make provision that necessities are not taxed, and however you do that, you're not going to tax groceries or whatever. But right now, the attitude of the rich counties, the 20 rich counties that support the other 80, and that's kind of how they look at it. Well, we just have to keep paying our taxes, and it goes down to these poor counties. Well, guess what? We all go to these other counties to shop, to buy our cars, all that kind of stuff. So some equitable distribution of those resources may be possible. And I haven't sat down and done all this on the back of a napkin. There's a lot of research that needs to go into it, but we're not the only state looking at doing away with property taxes. I'm a little concerned that right now, the only thing I've heard that the committee in Raleigh is looking at is what other properties can we tax? Let's start taxing not-for-profit hospitals. Maybe the next, that's the only one they talked about. So I think we need to get a larger view and say, what other revenue sources can we have to support our counties? Because guess what? The fire department in Hoke County ought to be just as good as the fire department in Raleigh. And that can't happen. I heard nothing but complaints in Scotland County about we would have a better clerk of court's office, but we can't afford the manpower we need to run it. You know, every little thing, like you're talking about, the sheriff doesn't have enough deputies. They're all certified in BLS or whatever, but you don't have enough of them. You don't have enough cars. So having some kind of equitable way to distribute resources in the state that does not depend on the fact that somebody drew a line along a river and it didn't include any beach houses or golf resorts, so Scotland County has to be poor. Whereas Moore County is wealthy because they have golf resorts. Brunswick County is wealthy because they have beach houses. The rest of that county is rural, or used to be, and now I know Wilmington's ballooning out there. It's just we need to look at this all differently, and it needs to be in a more equitable way. So we're talking about my platform, so that's prosperity, and the health issues, healthy families. There's not a soul listening right now that is opposed to people having better food, having fewer contaminants in their food. And we can argue about, do we need 20 vaccines or 10 vaccines or 40 vaccines? Maybe we went a little bit overboard on that when we took the liability away that say, you, Mr. Pharmaceutical Company, can make a product and you don't have any responsibility for any of the harms it causes.
How many people you going to kill?
So let's get some balance there. This COVID thing we went through was a big eye-opener. The burden of chronic disease is so much more massive than it was even 20 years ago, much less 40 years ago. But this has been a 40 or 50-year parade towards a sicker and sicker population, and it's affecting the kids as much or more than it's affecting the adults. So how do we turn that battleship and go back to better methods of farming? There's not a farmer around here that's trying to poison us. I don't believe it. But the farm chemical companies, they don't care if they poison us.
That's right.
So it's kind of the same recurring story. Big corporations that become soulless that just
Money.
money. Yeah. So that's it.
So talk about property taxes, and I've seen there's pushes in the state of Florida. I think Texas is talking about it. Texas is crazy property taxes because they don't have an income tax.
Right, exactly.
Stuff like that. But you're talking about other forms of property, so are we talking about eliminating private residence and then just like in Hoke or in Cumberland County, you pay $20 a year if you own a pet. That's a property tax.
Wow.
That's a property tax.
Yeah. So I mean, are we talking about that? Because I've seen some press releases. What's the representative up there, Braceras or Berzer?
Brian Echeverria is probably the guy that's been the most vocal,
the head.
But he's a junior member.
He is.
But the speaker came along and helped form this committee, and Brian's on it. They're looking for additional revenue sources so they can cap. Let's just cap the increases that everybody sees coming. We had Biden's inflation. Your house is worth 50% more than it was, and every county commission is thinking, well, if the property values went up 50%, we don't have to lower the property tax rate quite that much,
right?
And we'll get a pickup.
Or we can only raise it 2% instead of 3.5%.
Right. So we can make it look like we dropped the rate, but we're not going to drop it back to revenue neutral. So
right. Well, that's the thing too. You're talking about fire departments. North Carolina, the majority of fire departments are private enterprise. They're private companies. There's very few. I think City of Rayford has their own fire department, and I think Hillcrest might be a county fire department.
Hillcrest, yes.
But the rest of them are all private companies, so that their fire district, that's the only money they get to sustain operations. That's why they're all volunteers. They're I think Puppy Creek,
like 1 or 2 full-time.
Yeah, I think Puppy Creek is the only one that has any full-time staff.
So it's interesting. We do that with fire departments. We don't do that with law enforcement.
Yeah.
There's no volunteer law enforcement. I mean, you have the
we got what's called auxiliary, reserve. They don't
patrol daily though. They come out only
they're only required to put so many hours, which they don't get paid for per month. I think it's I know when I was in the Hoke County Sheriff's Office, 12 hours per month, and normally you did a 12-hour shift and you were done for the whole month, and they had to come and do the continuing ed, but they didn't get paid. I mean, they got issued the uniform stuff, but they didn't get paid. That is, in a way, that's sort of the volunteer part about it.
Yeah.
But they're not really volunteering because I volunteered for you to keep my certification, so it's really not
It's an obligated volunteer.
It's really not volunteer because I'm only doing it because I want you to keep my certification.
Right. Well, Ralph, I'm glad you said the quiet part out loud because a lot of people dance around the subject. But, politics are politics. And if you're on the team that's winning, you're going to reward those players that are on your team.
That's right.
In Hoke County, we don't have a Republican representative. Scotland County does not have a Republican representative. The Republicans are winning. The Republicans are in control of the purse, and they're going to reward their players more than they are the other team. Here in Hoke County, and I've seen it several times, and I'll call it what it is buying a vote. Garland Pierce voted for some legislation after he was promised a slice of something. That's not the way we need to do it. We need to have it so that we're on the winning team. Our representative is on the winning team.
I mean, those are just facts on facts,
Yeah, and like I said,
that's just how it is.
That's the quiet part. It's kind of distasteful to some people, but at the end of the day, it's the way the world works, and we got to confront what we have.
And like I've always said, those in power make the rules. That's just how it is.
For sure.
The county commissioners here, they empower. They make the rules.
Yep.
The prosperity of the state has improved more under Republican
absolutely.
control. So and
those are facts.
And things like the transgender surgery. Who voted to stop that? Not any Democrats.
That's right.
So those basic conservative family values, which is still most of the country, and it's certainly most of rural North Carolina, and it's most of North Carolina, in my opinion. People don't support that stuff. They certainly don't support the government paying to counsel children so they go have mutilating surgery. Who thought of that?
And that's shameful. So I don't know if y'all saw the State of the Union last Tuesday, but I tell you what, I'm going to quote President Donald Trump when he said the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. And he said, if you support this, I'm paraphrasing now, if you support this, stand up. And only Republicans and some of the audience out there stood up. It became crystal clear to me that if you are a Democrat today, you are for open borders. You care more about illegals, especially criminals, than you do about your own citizens. You hate America. That's very obvious. And basically, many people that I know continue to vote Democrat, especially at the federal level, because they want all these free money. You know, I guarantee you that there are more Democrats on social welfare than Republicans. If there's got to be research out there and something, if you're listening to me, please prove me wrong, because I know more Democrats on social services, and what I mean by that, food stamps, you know, Social Security, disability, all these programs that are only given by the federal government. You know, and this is where we're at, you know. But the bottom line is that you got to be able to be involved, and I mean, we're not asking for you to run for office. Like Dr. Carter, he's running for District 48, and also Kirk Laura. They have a primary, and hopefully one of these two individuals are going to go against Garland Pierce and see what happens. But hopefully the Republicans will come out. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If you're unaffiliated, a so-called independent, don't ever tell me that you're conservative if you're voting for Democrats. Don't ever tell me that, because you are a Democrat. That's the bottom line. I call it for what it is. I mean, I am not ashamed. I am a Republican, and I don't call that out loud. First of all, I am a conservative because I love my country. Okay, I love my neighbor, and I deeply care for this country. And I was I was upset when we let 15 million, and probably that's an under-number, 15 million illegal people from God knows
around the world.
Yeah. Around the world. We have probably terrorists here that we don't even know about yet, but we're going to know sooner or later.
We'll know, yeah.
You know, so anyways, that's where we're at right now. One of the things that I want to put out is that if you are a parent of homeschoolers, I just want to let you know. Of course, everybody that knows me knows that I'm a school board member. I don't speak for no board member or the school. I speak for myself. Obviously, I don't lose my voice. I just want to let you know that Hoke County School District has a policy that if you homeschool your kids and you want them to go through JRTC, they can enroll in the high school program under the JRTC. I would recommend that if you want to do that, wait until the high school project gets done, because we just walked through it, and I'll tell you what, it's awesome.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures. It's a vast improvement over what's over there now. But so Dr. Carter, in closing thoughts, just get out there and vote. I mean,
I want to say something about our race, and Kirk and I have been cordial, even friendly. We're both committed to putting a Republican in the seat in November for all the reasons we've talked about. We had discussions early about how do we avoid a primary. We both decided to proceed for different reasons, for different sets of reasons. And it's been very honorable and cordial and friendly. So we're not going to try to destroy each other on the way.
Yeah, and that's what
on the way to Raleigh.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you this, okay? And I was very displeased in the past, okay? And if the shoot fits, you go ahead and wear it. Whoever takes the primary, needs to support the one that goes forward. Openly and loudly, because we can't do it alone. We have to do it together. We cannot do it alone.
Yeah, we've had past instances of where it turned dirty after the primary, and we don't need to do that. I mean, conservatives don't do that. You don't fight like that.
If you really care, you don't run for selfish reasons. You run because you want to make a difference.
Yeah. All right, so I just want to make an announcement that we've decided that the Hoke County GOP convention is going to be on March 21st from 1 to 3. It's going to be over at the Rayford Civic Center, and we'll have some guest speakers there. Whoever comes out of the primary, obviously, and then also the Senate primary candidate will be there. And then we got some business to do, take about 2 hours, and then that's all I have for right now.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Go ahead and follow us. Click the like button, share. And if you have any ideas, go ahead and message us, and we'll gladly look into it. Also, don't forget to follow us. We will now at this time we're asking for you to follow us on our YouTube channel, Roundtable Talk Podcast. We need followers to follow us there also, just like Facebook, so we can have additional access, such as live stream through YouTube. We really appreciate it. And I'm Ruben Castellon.
And I'm Chris Holland.
And thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Getting to the facts across the state, around the world, and at home in Rayford, North Carolina. The Roundtable Talk Podcast. Brought to you in part by Rayford Guns, the Hoke County edition of the North State Journal, the Libre Initiative of North Carolina, and our flagship station, WCLN Christian 105.7. Be sure to like, share, and leave a review wherever you listen.